Concept is usually part of a series. I give myself a construct. I give myself a problem to solve. So that for several years now, I've been working on Italian landscape series. The most current work is that. I like to involve something up front, in the front of the painting, and that also recedes back, and it goes back even further, and goes back even further, and also has a suggestion of humanity in it, so that there's the piece prior to the one that I just started had a field of poppies, and then another level was vineyards, and then another level was the cityscape in the background. So it had several different steps to it. Currently, I'm working on a cityscape, which I haven't done in 20 years, and so it's really challenging. So what I did was do a couple of small sketches just to get my composition together. And in the process of doing that, I'm pulling pictures from magazines, I'm taking old photos that we took when we were there, I'm pulling tour book, cutting things out of tour books, calendars, anything, and kind of, just arranging them, sort of, in my head. Then I'll go and do the sketch. And the sketch is just a black and white, real fast, pencil, and then do it over with Sharpie, really quick. Then I'll take that drawing and put it on a 30 by 40 canvas. And I paint my canvases black with black gesso because I like what happens when you put color on black. So I paint it black, and then I start doing this sketch with just a colored pencil. And I'll get my things lined up, and I'll erase a lot of it, and then put it back together, and then erase it again. And that could take days and days and days just to get that right. Then I'll take an oil bar, which is an oil paint in a stick. I don't get along with brushes. I prefer a stick, like a crayon. And I'll color in big areas of just, red, yellow, green. Just big areas, just to have an idea of where the color is going to happen. Then I'll go in with the oil pastel, which is oil bar is kind of gooey and thick and painterly, whereas the oil pastel is kind of crayon-y like. It has that kind of feathered, uneven, textured feel to it. And I'll take those and I'll put the layer there, and then I'll take a little bit more color over there and a little more color over there, and just keep reworking areas and kind of try to work the whole canvas without getting too obsessed over this little spot or this little spot. So I'll start at the bottom and just start working up to the top, usually bottom left to top right. And when I'm doing the painting, I prefer to have on earphones, a book on tape, something where I don't hear the doorbell ringing or the dog barking or the phone or anything. I just zone. So you get to that kind of spot in your head where it's like, I'm sure musicians have the same kind of thing where they just like, the rest of the world is gone. I'm just there. I'm just looking. I'm just doing color. I'm not feeling anything. My foot doesn't hurt. My knees don't hurt. All I'm thinking is color. And how when you put this little streak of yellow over here and you cross-hatch it with this little thing of red, then you're going to get all those different variations of color in that little streaky spot. And you get that surface value, that little bits of the black canvas coming through those crayon-y like lines. And still some of the color that you put on there previously coming through those crayon-y like lines. So you get a depth of color along with the layers of Prismacolor. The depth of color coming from the black canvas to the oil bar color, solid color to the oil pastel on top. I grid off the painting. I grid it off in squares, tack it up the top, tack it up the bottom, so that I have equal boxes. And then take a piece of paper and do those, lay it out with a grid, and take it by grid over to the paper. And it's not, perfect. It's not precise. It's not like taking it on a computer and scanning the thing. It's just, I want some of the humanity in it, some of my interpretation in it, in each of those little squares. Finish my drawing completely, make my adjustments, then go back over it with a Sharpie, a black marker, and then take a piece of tracing paper, put the vellum on top of the drawing, and transfer it again. Because I need a transparent paper so that when I do the drawing this way, I'm going to transfer it to the block that way, right? Because you're turning it over. So like I have this drawing right here, and this was going to be a block. So I did the drawing this way, turned it over to lay it on the block, because I know when I print it, it's going to come out that way. You know, you're working the mirror image, right? So you have to turn everything over to get it to. So I needed the vellum to be able to do that with, and so I'll do it with the vellum, and then turn the vellum over, and then even make more changes, and then do another vellum that has this right, and then I'll go back into that second vellum and put in finer details, little spots where I know I want white to be, and I know I want my lighter colors, and I'll do, you know, odds and ends of pencil marks in it, saying, well, this is, if I have this light lamp up here, I know that it's going to shed light this direction, and so I mark that area off so I don't forget, you know, make this a lighter color. As I'm going through the printmaking process, it's kind of little notes to myself. The medium itself is ground compressed cork. It's not your kitchen floor, you know, which is vinyl. This is cork. This is what floors were made of, turn of the century, and it was used as the floors of battleships in World War II. This is where I learned to carve, is on this stuff, back in 6th grade. Because there was tons of it around, and you could buy it for next to nothing.
Yeah, it was cheap.
It was very cheap. So that's how I learned to carve. Anyway, so this is ground compressed cork. Take my vellum, put it on top of there, transfer the drawing to the block, then I start carving. And that could take, you know, I stew about it, I think about it, I dream about it, I fret over it. You know, if I carve too much, I'm going to screw up the whole design. If I don't carve enough, I'm going to have to go back and try to print a light color in that spot. So it's that first carving is always, it always takes way too long because I'm just thinking about it too much. So on these big pieces, my first carving looks like a big abstract because it's a big one color thing with a few little marks in it. Then I'll roll the whole thing with color. Put a paper on top of there, a paper that's already marked to fit exactly in that spot. I can't print in the summer because it's too humid, so the paper will stretch too much. So I have too many variables in the paper stretch, and the density of the ink. When it's hot, the ink gets really gushy and liquid. You know, it usually has some body, it has some, because you want it to sit on the parts that are not carved. You don't want it to seep in between. Very crucial point. Print 70 sheets of paper, one color. Then I'll go back on that same block, clean it off, take my vellum, put it back on there, trace where I want that first color to show up. Carve that area out, and the carving is really the fun part. I mean, that's passionate. I mean, that's really the, you know, just the really, you get into your medium. Carve that area out, then roll color on that one, take those same pieces of paper that had one color on them, put them back on there again in exactly the same spot, and print 70 sheets of paper. Now they have two colors. And then I go back, clean the block off, take the vellum, put the tracing paper back on. So this is 20 times carving and printing from the same block. And then I have an addition. It's only 5 months later.